Hi, I'm Leah, and this video is about autism, Aspergers, after diagnosis or self-recognition. Now what? So, yeah, often people go through diagnosis or self-recognize themselves as being autistic and then don't know what to do afterwards, and it can be really hard. So I thought I'd put together a list of 10 things that might be helpful to some after diagnosis. So I've got my papers to help me because that helps me put everything in good order, and yeah, so I'll be using those. So number one, I've put down, these are some things that you could use if you think they'd be helpful to you. So number one, I put just allowing time to accept and acknowledge the diagnosis and how you feel about it, because processing time with and processing emotions and feelings, well, from personal experience, can take a really long time. So just that time to just accept and acknowledge the diagnosis, even if others don't believe you, because that can happen a lot. It's like other people often have a different sense of what they think autism is. Yeah, this can, you can go through many layers of different feelings. I know I felt a lot of grief and anger and things, just like, it's like, to me it felt like, so I'm speaking from personal experience, not trying to guess what other people would feel, so I just put this out just in case it's helpful to anyone else. But I definitely felt like my life beforehand, it felt like it was all in front of me, going through different layers of it and seeing it all in a different perspective, and that took a lot of time to sort of just acknowledge. Really, I can't really say I've really done anything with that as much as just to see that in a different perspective, from that point of view after diagnosis. So yeah, lots of memories coming up. I had lots of memories coming up, things about school and work, different workplaces that I've been and stuff like that. Yeah, so that's number one. Number two, I've put down learn everything you can. And I think this is really, really useful, to learn whatever you can, by listening to other people speaking, other autistic people speaking, and say, I don't know what they're called, like writing on like blogs, podcasts, whatever you can get hold of can really help process those feelings and process those thoughts. It's kind of, to me, it kind of feels like the help, in the sense of feeling like it's like asking myself questions and knowing which questions to ask myself, like, do I feel like that, or do I feel like that, or do I not feel like that? Some things I like really felt the same as some things I felt completely different, and some things similar, but it just helps to sort of, you might not realize how you've been feeling. I know often I haven't realised how I've been feeling about things, or things I might have felt like everyone feels like that, like that's what everybody goes through, that's what everybody feels, and to learn that everybody doesn't feel like that and everybody isn't experiencing that like that came as quite a shock to me, because I think I'd gone through my life just really believing that whatever I was experiencing, everybody else was experiencing the same, and I didn't understand that they weren't. So yeah, I didn't realise how I'd been feeling about a lot of things. And with alexithymia, you could look that up, that's like not struggling to process feelings, or not even being able to process feelings at all, not knowing how you feel. So that can really help, because like sometimes it can just spark something and you can feel like, yeah, that makes sense to me, and I definitely feel like that, and then you can come up with solutions and things that could help with those things. And yeah, investigating what affects you and how much it affects you. So like, say for instance, just for example, like say sensory things, what kind of sensory issues can affect you, and how much. So a lot of people talk about sound and sight and things like that. I actually have a lot of difficulty with visuals, and that's something I haven't seen a lot about, so I think I've put that out in a couple of videos that might be helpful to people. But like I say, I get very, very overwhelmed by visuals. Say for instance, I don't go in supermarkets because it's just, I just get lost. I actually just get stuck. There's just too many things. There's too many things to look at. It's like my brain is trying to process all of them, everything. And I, at the same time, I actually really like visuals as well. So like, I like to surround myself with visuals that feel comforting to me and that I like, but I can get really overwhelmed by visuals that other things. Yeah, so that brings me to also like hypo as well, because you can be hypersensitive to things, but you can also be hyposensitive to things and need it more. So you might need more volume, and not be able to hear quite enough that you need, and things like that. So that's something to look into. And it's useful to keep a journal if you can, just writing down, and it helps with the processing as well. Not for everybody obviously, but if you feel like that might be helpful to you, it's quite good to journal things and just write down, you know, what, it's kind of just getting things in perspective of how you feel. Number 3 is investigating masking. This is a really useful thing to look at, because that can be really confusing, because you can think you don't get affected by something and then realise actually you were just covering up that you're really affected by that thing. So masking, I won't go into it too much because I have done a video about masking if you want to see it, and there's lots of other videos online about masking. So it's basically just trying to give the illusion that you're coping with things that you're not, or trying to pretend that you can do things that you can't, or I think it's all about trying to not be seen and not yeah, like say for instance, like if I needed my ears covered because the sound was too much, like I might not do that because it would look strange, because I can't put things in my ears. So that's a good example. Is like I'd need over ear headphones, and so I might not use those when I'd need to. I would put that down as masking, because it's like I'm trying to look like, I would be trying to look like I was coping with the sound when I can't. Yeah, in certain situations, not all the time. So yeah, or trying to look like you can understand things that you might not be able to, or there's a whole host of things comes under masking. So that's a big subject, and it's really worth looking into that, so that you can separate what you've tried to cover and hide, as opposed to what you actually really feel. And yeah, so separating how you've thought that you should be and how you've thought that you should feel according to other people, and from how you actually do feel and how you actually are, so that you can know your truth and know yourself really deeply. And that's really helpful, because then you can come up with solutions to help with the things that you find more difficult. Whereas if you don't investigate that part, you know, it's you've got nothing to start from finding solutions. And looking into how and where you mask, like how you mask and what places you mask the most or more or at all. And it's interesting to see the places where you don't mask as well. That's really interesting to look at, and looking at, do you want to, or do you need to, or do you do it at all? So number 4, getting to know your sensory triggers. So I spoke a bit about that earlier. So that can affect you differently on different days, like yeah, so or it could be the same all the time, but looking into what things trigger your senses and start to send you into a feeling of overwhelm, and things that start to trigger meltdowns and shutdowns. So for instance, I now, years later, I'm quite good at know it, like not all the time, but quite often I can know when I can feel a shutdown coming on. Sometimes it's too late and I'm already just feeling too shut down. But if I can feel myself starting to head towards shutdown, sometimes I can do something about that to help myself. So you can see if there's anything that can be adjusted. So that's a really useful thing to look at. Number 5, you could look into support groups. Do you need a support group? Do you feel like you've got a supportive group of people? You know, if you've got supportive people around you, like really, like in truth, like do you feel really supported by the people around you? And would it be helpful to have surroundings of people that feel similar or the same, that you can talk to or listen to or be with, or just for a feeling of acceptance as you are? So another thing I've just put into here as well is, as I've seen often examples of people feeling like quite thrown by, like say if they've got a diagnosis or they've self-recognized as autistic, and then they've looked for groups of other online, look for groups of other autistic people, you can find that some areas and some groups of people can be quite non-accepting, and so I've just put that in there to just be prepared for and look out for, because there are things going on online that are very not accepting of people as they are. So there's like a whole lot of other right and wrong rules, like you should say this and you should do that and you should be like this, and so that's, you know, just be prepared and look out for that if you are looking online for support, to find the areas that are right for you and the people that are right for you. So that you could look online for support groups and find, you know, sometimes there's in-person meetup groups in your area maybe, or online groups that you could join. I do, and I've only done one so far, but I am running another one really soon, so I do have a little online get together that I'm sorting out, which you're welcome to message if you want to. So yeah, there's things like that you can find online anyway, and in person. Number 6 is learn all you can about your strengths. So and how you can utilize them, and as often as possible. So you're going to have a lot of strengths and a lot of things, even if you haven't found them yet and you don't know. Like surely there'll be a lot of things that you'd be really good at doing, you know, that things, you know, it might not be noticeable straight away of what your strengths are, but like just things that you know you might be really attuned to and really good at noticing or doing. So yeah, can you utilize those strengths daily, or how often can you utilize those strengths and what are they? Can you work in teamwork with them? So like say I've got some really good strengths that I work with, but there's things that I'd need to be able to use those strengths that I'm not so good at. So I, like say for instance, me and my husband work in a team on our work, and we work really well like that together because his strengths are different to my strengths, so working together we make a really good team. So this, you know, like, is there a place where you could work together with someone, or work together with a team or a group, to bring your strengths out and work with them more? And can you use your special interests for work? So that would be something really nice to look into. You know, that might take time to develop and might take time to come, you know, as something that you can do as a job. But like, it took me a long time to be able to bring what I'm really good at into a work, you know, into being my work. But yeah, I just took the time and let that develop. So that's something nice to look at. So after diagnosis, now what? Number 7 is how you could work differently with your, you know, after diagnosis, you can see things in a different light, you can see things in a different perspective. So is there a way that you can work with your partner or the people that you're close with in your life? Is there a way that you can work together in strengths like that, just like at home or, you know, socially together? So you've both got strengths. You might not be used to looking at your strengths or hearing about your strengths. You might be used to really hearing about what you don't do right and stuff like that. So that often happens. So it's turning that around and looking at what areas you are really good at doing. And can you be unconventional to make it work? Like if it doesn't work, at first, is the things that you can put into place that might be unconventional that can make that work together in your own right way. So it's good to see things not as right or wrong, but just as what is and what isn't. So that can really help, especially with relationships and friendships and things like that. So I think because society is set up as seeing certain things as right and certain things as wrong, that's where a lot of the difficulty lies. Because really, like, logically, a lot of the things that are seen as wrong aren't really wrong at all, and a lot of things that are seen as right, like, actually aren't really right at all either. So it's like just seeing them as what is or what isn't, and what you want to do or what you don't want to do, and trying to work from there can be really helpful. So acknowledging the truth clearly, as opposed to blame and criticism, it's like so very different things. So like trying to work together in a way where you just see, as I say, what is and what isn't, rather than what's right and what's wrong. And maybe journaling together or working together or chatting together to find ways to find creative solutions for everybody's needs, to get everybody's needs met and in the best way possible. You could use written communication instead of verbal as well. That can be helpful. So that's working with your partner and close ones. Number 8 is finding creative solutions for work or for school. It is true that like lots of workplaces and lots of schools can be very unhelpful with things like this. But if it's possible to get that help or to fight for that help and to just really try and get that in place, that can really make a big difference. So think like little things, for example, like having instructions written rather than verbal, can be really, really helpful for a lot of people. Being allowed to use earplugs, or headphones if you can't stand things in your ears, at times when that's necessary. Like say, for instance, in school, if you're really concentrating, or at work, if it's like, you're not dealing with customers and things, and you can just take out some of the sound that might be overwhelming, or things like that. I'm just giving examples. Having quiet places to go when you need to, and just 5 minutes to just take a moment, and whenever you can, and things like that. And knowing what's going to happen. So like, if your workplace or your school can support letting you know what's going to happen ahead of time so that you can process it a bit before, that can be really helpful. Or being allowed to have a fidget toy and things like that. So for example, I remember in the past I worked in a farm shop, and I really liked the farm shop, and they, the people there really liked me, but I did find it really, really overwhelming. It could get really, really, really busy, and there was a lot of other things that had to be done. There was a lot of multitasking had to go on, and that's definitely not one of my strengths. So I worked together with the people that I worked with there, and we found that I was working there on the run up to Christmas, and it worked really well for me to work in. There was a horse trailer where we were doing hampers, so we're making farm shop hampers in the horse trailer. So everybody thought it'd be better if I work in there so that I can just really concentrate, and it would be quiet, and the lighting was better for me as well, and I could just focus, like really hyper focus on getting all these hampers made, and I was brilliant at it. And yeah, that worked really, really well. So it's just like, if possible, to adjust things to make things work for your strengths, rather than somebody else being in the horse trailer who might not have liked it and me being on the till. So it just worked better that way around. So little things like that. Number 9 is looking at, this might sound really, really strange, but looking into hormones, because that can really affect autism a lot. So I guess more with women, but I'm not sure. But you know, as your hormones change throughout the month, that can really have a big effect on with autistic people. So be learning about that, clocking your changes throughout the month, and just knowing ahead of time, you know, how, you know, do you feel more insular at certain times? Do you need more quiet time at certain times? And looking into natural ways to support yourself and things like that. And also I've put into this section as well about trigger foods. So I'd say I've put this into this section of number 9. So I've really recognized that there's like several foods that really trigger me a lot. I avoid those things because that, you know, it just makes my executive functioning harder, and lots of my sensory difficulties harder, and a lot of things. So I cut those out, and I found those out by looking into what foods could be triggering, and then I stopped having them, and I left it for several weeks before trying it again. And then when I tried them again, like, I could really feel the difference of which things were triggering me. So I tried them separately, one at a time, until I learned. And number 10 is to try to really work on knowing that you're not wrong. Like, you know, it's like, it's difficult in society with how society views things, but just trying to work on that knowing of you know, everybody's unique and everybody's different, and you know, so society sort of looks at things as, but you know, it's like a set of rules, it's like a set of ways of being, none of which I get. It doesn't make any logical sense to me, a lot of it. And you know, it's all about really fitting in this narrative of things, people being right and wrong, and things being right and wrong, and a right and wrong way to be, instead of what just is, and everybody being unique. So yeah, that's where this, you know, the masking comes in, of wanting to, you know, because of all, there's so much fakery and gaslighting, and trying to keep up with this certain way to be, and it's really hard to be around that. So you know, to try and feeling like the need to fit in with what's so-called right. So to try and like really work on that in your heart, of just knowing you're a unique individual person. And I think it's a good idea looking into how we're meant to be naturally. I've done a lot of study of tribal people, and from all over the planet, and you know, there's just things make a lot of sense. You know, there's a lot of things that are a lot more logical and real, and honest and truthful. So that's a nice thing to look into that can help with that. Yeah, and what else? Yeah, to know that, like, you know, there's a long way to go with the change that needs to happen in society towards autism. And yeah, that work is in progress, and there's a lot of people really working hard to get good information out there and honest information out there, and that's still really in progress. So there's a long way to go, and it's hard. It can feel like waiting for the world to change and catch up with knowing that people are unique and stuff. But yeah, that's, if you can surround yourself with as much support and as possible, then that's going to help a lot. So this was 10 things with after diagnosis now, what 10 things that could help. So I hope it's been useful to some of you, and if you've got anything you'd like to share that's been useful to you, if you're watching this as somebody who's really gone through a lot of things after diagnosis, have found some things that were useful and you want to share them, feel free to share them. And yeah, thanks.